Welcome to Moon and Fire. I'm Emily Bailey, the founder of Whole and Wild, where I guide women back to their sacred wisdom through ritual and cyclical living. I'm creating this sacred space for your whole self to be here. Your wisdom, your shadows, your longings, and your fierce power. This is a podcast for women who sense there's more depth, more magic, more of their untamed essence waiting to be remembered and unleashed. Welcome home, sacred woman. Today, we're exploring something fundamental to our experience as human beings: the dance of the masculine and the feminine energies. This exploration feels especially fitting for our Moon and Fire podcast, as the name itself represents the sacred dance that we're discussing. The moon embodies the feminine energy, cyclical, reflective, intuitive, and mysterious. Fire represents masculine energy, direct, transformative, action-oriented, and illuminating. These two forces aren't in opposition, but in beautiful partnership, just like the energies we'll explore today. Before we dive in, I want to be very clear about something important. When I speak of masculine and feminine energy, I'm not talking about gender, biological sex, or what makes someone a man or a woman. These energies exist in every human being regardless of gender identity, and they represent universal principles that flow throughout nature and the cosmos. This is a conversation about energetic qualities, what I sometimes call go energy and flow energy, that exist within all of us, and that, when balanced, create a profound harmony in our lives. Unfortunately, many of us, especially women, have been conditioned to overvalue masculine energy and suppress or even shame our feminine nature. Today, we'll explore how to recognize these energies, understand their sacred partnership, and begin inviting more balance into our lives. I've been on my own journey with these energies for many years. I remember a time when I was so deeply embedded in masculine energy that I had almost completely lost touch with my feminine nature. I was constantly doing, achieving, pushing, planning, moving from one goal to the next without pause. My day was structured down to the minute. My worth was measured by my productivity. I had mastered the art of linear progress, but I had forgotten the wisdom of cyclical being. When my body revealed to me that I was starting to burn out, I listened to my life, and I heard the call of the feminine rising up within me. This journey back to my feminine essence while honoring the healthy masculine has been one of the most profound transformations of my life, and it's what I want to explore with you today. Let's begin by exploring masculine energy, what I often call go energy. This energy is characterized by several core qualities. It's directional and focused. It's action-oriented and assertive. It's structured and ordered, analytical and logical, goal-driven and achievement-oriented, protective and containing. Masculine pathways are all about action, drive, strength, measurable progress, and following a linear or chronological path forward. It moves in straight lines. It knows where it's going and creates a direct path to get there. It builds structures, establishes boundaries, and creates order from chaos. It's the energy of the warrior, the builder, the protector. I find metaphors helpful for understanding these abstract energies. Think of masculine energy as an arrow, direct, focused, singular in purpose. It knows its target and it moves toward it without deviation. Or imagine a mountain, solid, structured, unchanging, standing firm regardless of what happens around it. The sword is another powerful metaphor, decisive, cutting through confusion, creating clear boundaries between what is and what isn't. In nature, masculine energy expresses as the sun, radiating outward in straight lines, illuminating, warming, consistent in its presence day after day. It's also like fire, transformative, consuming, requiring fuel and direction to be constructive rather than destructive. Healthy masculine energy provides essential gifts: the capacity to act decisively, to protect what we love, to create structures that support growth, to move forward with clarity and purpose. Without these qualities, we would struggle to bring our visions into form, to establish healthy boundaries, and to create meaningful change in the world. Now let's explore feminine energy, what I call flow energy. This energy has its own essential qualities. It's receptive and allowing, cyclical and rhythmic, intuitive and feeling-based, creative and generative, interconnected and relational, nurturing and expansive. Feminine pathways are marked by mystery, soul time, wonder, and an intuitive trust in the unseen. It moves in curves and spirals. It doesn't rush toward a destination, but unfolds in its own perfect timing. It connects rather than separates, feels rather than analyzes, trusts rather than controls. It's the energy of the priestess, the creator, the visionary. If we return to metaphors, feminine energy is like the ocean, flowing, deep, ever moving, responding to the pull of the moon in tidal rhythms. It's the moon itself, cyclical, reflective, mysterious, influencing from afar without direct contact. The garden is another beautiful metaphor, nurturing diverse forms, changing with the seasons, creating an interdependent ecosystem where everything is connected. In its movement, feminine energy resembles a spiral, not moving in straight lines, but returning to the same points at new levels of understanding and integration. And of course, water perfectly embodies feminine qualities, adaptable, finding the way around obstacles rather than powering through them, life-giving in its essence. Healthy feminine energy brings irreplaceable gifts, the ability to receive and gestate new life, literally and figuratively, to nurture growth, to sense what isn't visible to the analytical mind, to move with rather than against the natural rhythms of life, to create from an empty space rather than constant doing. These qualities aren't soft or weak as our culture often portrays them. In fact, feminine energy holds immense power, not the power of force, but the power of attraction, creation, and transformation. It takes profound strength to remain open and receptive in a world that values only assertion and action. Now, here's what's really beautiful. These energies were never meant to exist in isolation from one another. They're designed to work in partnership, each one enhancing and balancing the other in a sacred dance. Think about it this way. Feminine energy receives the vision, the intuitive knowing of where to go. Masculine energy creates the strategy and takes the action to get there. Masculine energy establishes protective boundaries around what matters. Feminine energy creates the nourishing connections within those boundaries. Feminine receives and generates. Masculine holds and directs. We see this partnership throughout nature. The seed, which is feminine, requires the structure of the shell, which is masculine, to protect its vulnerable potential until it's ready to emerge. The flowing river, feminine, needs the containing banks, masculine, to channel its movement toward the ocean. The expansive night sky, feminine, is balanced by the focused light of the stars, masculine. This dance of energies also mirrors the natural cycles of expansion and contraction that we see throughout life. The inhale and exhale of breath, the waxing and waning of the moon, the outward movement of summer and the inward movement of winter. Neither is more important than the other. Both are essential to the whole. When these energies work in harmony within us, we experience a profound sense of balance. We can act decisively when needed and then surrender and receive. We can create structure in our lives without becoming rigid. We can flow with our intuition while still honoring commitments and boundaries. We become whole, integrated humans, capable of responding to life with our full range of capacities. Unfortunately, our modern Western culture doesn't value these energies equally. We live in a world that has overwhelmingly privileged masculine qualities while dismissing or even demonizing feminine ones. This imbalance affects everyone, regardless of gender, but often impacts women in particularly painful ways, as we're asked to suppress the very energies that are often most natural to us. We in the Western world are significantly bent toward living life according to masculine pathways. We see it in how we make life happen and how we often muscle our way through life, focused more on fixing what is broken than stewarding well-being. This cultural imbalance shows up as chronic doing without being, the constant pressure to produce, achieve, and perform without pause for integration or rest. It appears as valuing productivity over presence, measuring our worth by our output rather than our essence. We see it in the elevation of linear progress while ignoring cyclical wisdom, the belief that life should move in a straight upward trajectory rather than naturally ebbing and flowing. On a larger scale, our systems reflect this imbalance through competition over collaboration, extraction over sustainability, dominance over partnership. And on a personal level, many of us experience the consequences as burnout, depletion, and disconnection from our body's wisdom and natural rhythms. Because the way of feminine pathways is characteristically slower, full of mystery, and deep rhythm, they're regularly overlooked as passive or viewed as a luxury to be embraced once the real work has been done. However, to dismiss feminine pathways is to overlook the great power that is born through stillness and open hands. I see this particularly in my work with women in transition. So many arrive completely exhausted from years of overriding their cyclical nature to fit into linear structures. They've learned how to push through fatigue, ignore intuitive nudges, and silence their body's signals in service of constant productivity. Their masculine energy isn't just leading, it's dominating, while their feminine energy has been pushed so far into the shadows that they barely recognize it anymore. It's important to note that an excess of feminine energy without masculine balance can also create challenges. Ideas without implementation, boundary issues and overextension, emotional overwhelm without structure, difficulty with completion and follow-through, or an inability to manifest visions in concrete form. But in my experience, this imbalance is far less common in our culture than the suppression of feminine energy. The truth is, we need a reclamation of the feminine, not at the expense of the masculine, but in sacred partnership with it. We need to remember that the feminine doesn't need to become masculine to be powerful. It has its own distinct and essential form of power. Something profound that I've also come to understand is that feminine and masculine energies cannot truly be eliminated. They're too essential, too primal, too intelligent to be completely erased. When we try to suppress either energy, it doesn't simply disappear. Instead, it finds alternative pathways to express itself, often in distorted or shadow forms. When feminine energy is consistently devalued and suppressed, it doesn't vanish, it goes underground. It may emerge as emotional overwhelm that seems to come from nowhere, as chronic physical ailments that force us to slow down, as inexplicable anxiety or depression, or as a deep sense of emptiness despite external achievements. The feminine is incredibly resourceful and will find ways to be heard when we refuse to listen to its whispers. Similarly, when masculine energy is rejected or denied, it doesn't disappear either. It may emerge as passive-aggressive behavior, as an inability to set healthy boundaries, as chronic indecision, or as resentment towards those who embody healthy masculine qualities. The real issue isn't the presence of either energy, but their isolation from each other. When either masculine or feminine energy operates in isolation, cut off from its balancing counterpart, it grows in a malformed way, like a plant reaching for the light through a crack in the concrete. It's still growing, still expressing its essential nature, but in a distorted form that can't access its full wisdom and power. Our sacred work is to reclaim the balance between these energies, to honor the fullness of who we are made to be. This isn't about rigid equality. Some days or phases will naturally call for more masculine energy, others for more feminine. The key is that both energies are welcome at the table of our being, both are honored for their distinct gifts, and both are allowed to express in their healthiest forms. When we allow our feminine and masculine energies to dance together, each one leading in the moments when its wisdom is most needed, we experience a profound sense of wholeness. We no longer feel fragmented or at war with ourselves. We can embrace the full spectrum of our capabilities, drawing on the perfect energy for each situation we face. So how do you know if you're experiencing this energetic imbalance in your own life? Here are some signs I've observed both in myself and in hundreds of women that I've worked with. You feel constantly exhausted, but can't slow down because your worth is tied to your productivity. You notice that you can easily make plans and set goals, but you struggle to actually enjoy the journey of achieving them. Your calendar is meticulously organized, but you rarely leave space for spontaneity or rest. You find yourself stuck in your head, analyzing and overthinking, while feeling disconnected from the wisdom of your body. You trust external authorities more than your own intuition. You push through your natural cycles rather than honoring their different energies. You feel uncomfortable with uncertainty and try to control outcomes rather than allowing things to unfold. Oof. You measure success by external achievements rather than internal fulfillment. You notice that your doing to being ratio is heavily skewed toward constant action. If these patterns sound familiar, you're not alone, and there's nothing wrong with you. You've simply been living in a culture that has trained you to operate primarily from one type of energy while suppressing the other. The good news is that your feminine essence hasn't disappeared. It's simply waiting to be remembered and reclaimed. So how do we begin to restore balance? How do we invite our feminine energy to lead more often while maintaining a healthy relationship with our masculine? I believe it starts with permission. Permission to be cyclical rather than constant, to trust intuition alongside analysis, to value being as much as doing. This permission creates a crack in the armor of constant productivity through which your natural feminine wisdom can begin to flow once again. Here are some practical ways to invite more feminine energy into your daily life. Connect with your body's wisdom. Before making decisions from your analytical mind, check in with the knowing of your body. Place a hand on your heart or your belly and ask, "What do you need me to know?" Then listen for the response, not in words, but in sensations, images, or feelings. Honor your cyclical nature. Track your menstrual cycle if you have one, or the moon cycle if you don't, and begin to notice the different energies available to you throughout the month. Plan your activities to align with these energies rather than fighting against them. Create sacred space for receptivity. Schedule regular periods of unstructured time, even just 15 minutes, where you have no agenda except to receive. This might look like sitting quietly in nature, meditating, or simply lying down and feeling your breath move through your body. Move in nonlinear ways. Our bodies often hold the patterns of our masculine dominant culture. Interrupt these patterns by dancing freely, moving in spirals or curves, or simply swaying rather than walking in straight lines. This physical practice helps rewire neural pathways that have become locked in masculine patterns. Practice deep listening. Notice the difference between listening to respond, which is masculine, and listening to receive, which is feminine. When in conversation, can you empty yourself of preconceptions and truly receive what the other person is sharing before formulating a response? Embrace the wisdom of not knowing. This was a tough one. Masculine energy likes certainty and answers. And honestly, we've been taught to worship certainty. But feminine energy is comfortable with mystery and questions. Can you practice staying in the tension of not knowing rather than rushing to resolution? Celebrate rest as sacred. In a culture that values only the active phase of creation, can you honor the fallow periods as equally essential? Just as a field needs to lie fallow to restore nutrients before the next planting, your creative energy requires periods of apparent nothingness to regenerate. These practices aren't about rejecting masculine energy, but about creating more balance in how we embody both energies. The goal isn't to swing from one extreme to the other, but to develop a fluid relationship with both the go and the flow, allowing each to lead when appropriate. Let me offer a simple practice that you can begin using today to cultivate more balance between your masculine and feminine energies. It just takes a few minutes to look at transitional moments in your day. When you're moving from one activity to another, perhaps from work to home or from sleep to waking, take 3 conscious breaths. On the first breath, notice where you feel tension in your body and allow it to soften slightly. On the second breath, place a hand on your heart and ask, what energy is needed now? On the third breath, consciously choose which energy you want to lead in the next activity. This tiny ritual, which takes less than a minute, interrupts default patterns of masculine dominance and creates space for a conscious choice. Over time, these small moments of awareness build new neural pathways that allow for more fluid movement between energies. The beauty of this practice is its simplicity. You don't need special tools or extended time. You just need the willingness to pause and choose. And in that conscious choosing lies the seed of transformation. As we come to the close of our time together, I want to acknowledge that this journey of balancing masculine and feminine energies is ongoing. It's not about arriving at a perfect equilibrium once and for all, but about continuing to dance with these energies throughout our lives, allowing each to lead in different seasons and circumstances. What I've found most liberating in my own journey is the recognition that I don't have to reject my masculine capacities to reclaim my feminine essence. I need both. We all do. The question isn't which energy is better, but which one has been suppressed and needs more expression in this moment. For most women I work with, it's the feminine that's been pushed into the shadows, that has been told it's too much, too slow, too emotional, too cyclical for our fast-paced linear world. And so the invitation is to remember this essential part of ourselves, not as a rejection of our magnificent capacity for focus, action, and structure, but as a completion of our whole integrated being. This week, I invite you to notice moments when you're operating from purely masculine energy. Can you pause in those moments and ask what it would look like to bring in some feminine qualities? Not to replace the masculine entirely, but to create more balance and wholeness in how you move through the world. Remember, you contain both the mountain and the ocean, both the arrow and the spiral, both the fire and the water. Your wholeness embraces all of these energies in their perfect dance. May you honor both the go and the flow within you. May you recognize the sacred partnership of these primal forces. May you rediscover the power of your feminine essence. And may you move through the world as the whole integrated being you truly are. Remember the sacred cycles. Reclaim your radiant fire. Unleash your intuitive magic. Thank you so much for being here, sacred woman. Until next time.